Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Edlow. I'm a member of the Neurocritical Care faculty at Mass General Hospital and Associate Professor of Neurology at Harvard Medical School. I had the honor of co-leading the Disorders of Consciousness Common Data Element Initiative with Jose Suarez and Jan Clausen, and I led the effort for the Neuroimaging Work Group on Common Data Elements. To take a step back and consider the motivation for this effort, we have learned from multiple prior efforts to develop common data elements, or CDEs, that doing so can literally and figuratively bring together a field and can ensure that everybody is on the same page with respect to how they report and how they analyze and interpret their data. Prior efforts that were commissioned by the National Institutes of Health pertain to ischemic stroke, traumatic brain injury, subarachnoid hemorrhage. And when we launched this disorder of consciousness effort in 2020-2021, our goal was to build upon the work that had been done before us. We certainly did not want to recreate the wheel. And so a theme that you'll notice running through all of the DOC CDE work groups is that wherever possible, we leveraged existing common data elements that were relevant to patients with disorders of consciousness. And so when we launched the DOC effort for common data elements in 2020 or 2021, we built upon prior work from ischemic stroke, subarachnoid hemorrhage, and traumatic brain injury to ensure that the common data elements we selected for disorders of consciousness were consistent and compatible with those that had been developed before us. Now to focus on neuroimaging. Our task was to ensure that the rapidly growing and emerging field of neuroimaging biomarkers of consciousness, both to detect and predict recovery, and in some state-of-the-art applications to guide the development of new therapies, that all of these neuroimaging studies were communicating with the same language and the same common data elements. We first convened a work group to consider which are the different neuroimaging modalities that we would want to focus on. This work group met monthly for 2 years between 2021 and 2023. And the list of modalities that we came up with is as follows. Head CT, of course, the bread and butter of all of the neuroimaging evaluations of our patient population. Conventional MRI, your standard T1, T2 flare diffusion sequences. T1 volumetrics, looking at the cortical structure with respect to its thickness or volume. Fourth, diffusion MRI, and this included advanced techniques like diffusion tensor imaging and multi-shell diffusion MRI. Fifth, perfusion imaging with both CT and MRI. Sixth, functional MRI, which included resting state, stimulus-based, and task-based tools. Seventh, PET, again incorporating resting state, passive, and task-based tools. And then finally, number 8, magnetic resonance spectroscopy. So we organized our common data elements into those 8 bins, and we created 8 case report forms. Each case report form contained the common data elements that were relevant to those modalities, and those case report forms are available for download. They were published initially as the supplementary materials of a manuscript in Neurocritical Care, and they are also available online on a website called Zenodo, zenodo.org. And if you go to Zenodo and search for Disorders of Consciousness Common Data Elements, you will see our case report forms, along with those of all of the other work groups. We are very proud that at the time of this recording, we've had over 1,000 views and over 3,000 downloads of all of these different case report forms. So there does seem to be some interest in our community. And again, the overarching goal here is to ensure that the entire research community worldwide is communicating with the same common data element language. With respect to other nuances of the process, one of the most hotly debated aspect of the process was classifying each common data element with respect to whether it should be disease core, meaning required for all disorder of consciousness studies, regardless of the underlying etiology, trauma, cardiac arrest, etc. Or should it be classified as basic, meaning that it's strongly recommended for all DOC studies, but not required. The next classification was supplemental, recommended for specific DOC studies depending on the context or goals of that study. And then finally, exploratory common data elements that were not quite ready for prime time, but can be considered for future use. Our work group during these monthly meetings debated and classified each common data element according to that system. And I want to make an important point here, which is that the definitions we used, which I just summarized, are evolving. and I want to acknowledge and credit the leadership of Joe Giacino, the many other work group leaders, but I particularly mentioned Dr. Giacino because he is leading the new iteration, version 3.0 of the traumatic brain injury common data element effort. And as the leader of that effort, you'll see that there is some evolution of these terms and the way that the classifications are being applied as we as a community further discuss the most appropriate way to both classify and disseminate these common data elements. So with that classification in mind, anybody who wants to start a new neuroimaging study can download these case report forms, can read our recommendations about which of these common data elements are disease core versus basic, supplemental, and exploratory. And then one final comment about the manner in which the case report forms are organized. We have specific designations for some new nomenclature, a term that we proposed here called key design elements. So what does that mean? KDE as opposed to CDE. Key design elements are specific methodologic parameters. So in neuroimaging, that would be, how do we acquire the functional MRI sequence? What are the particular sequence parameters for a diffusion acquisition? Those are the types of aspects of the case report form that are classified as key design elements. Now, we did not, after extensive debate, we did not make specific recommendations for how investigators should be acquiring their data. This field is evolving so rapidly that any recommendations we would make would be immediately outdated within days to weeks. And so we avoided specific recommendations about which parameters to pick, but we did recommend that key design elements be reported so that everybody knows exactly what parameters were used and so that studies can be replicated. The most important message that I would like to share with our community and the lesson that I take away from this effort is the importance of international collaboration, the degree to which this brought together our community in common purpose, and how this provides us with literally a common language to move forward and to ensure that our field is progressing. Thank you for the opportunity to share this experience with you, and happy to take any questions. If people want to follow up about the CDEs, please email me anytime. My email address is bedlow@mgh.harvard.edu. Thank you.